How are you doing? Welcome to another Absolute Beginner series here on Facebook. Oh man, it's good to being here. It's another Wednesday evening. It is March 21st, 2018. This is the 12th of these live streams here on Facebook. See, we already get people joining. That's absolutely awesome. And this format is a little bit different than the ones that we're normally doing on YouTube. In the regards that here, you ask any question you got, and I will do my best to answer them as we're going along. So I will stop what I'm doing and try to answer any questions. So really appreciate you guys taking the time. And I am just trying to add a little bit more value to your Fusion 360 experience. So let's jump into it. What are we going to show today? So I thought that now where this is the 12th one, maybe try something a little bit different. We're still going to model up a part, and it's going to be absolute beginner. We're going to model up something like a traffic style cone. I thought could be interesting. What we're going to do is we're actually going to model up this cone absolutely beginner style. We're going to put use some extrusions for it, but then when we have done that, because this is a fairly simple model, I wanted to take the opportunity to show you a couple of other commands that I think as a beginner you at least should kind of like know or understand. So the basic extrude command that you find inside of Fusion, that one we're going to cover. But I also want to talk a little bit about the Revolve command, and I want to talk about the sweep and the loft tonight. So I'm hoping to kind of like get a chance to cover all of these. Brandon is asking if I figured out the loft from my earlier exhaust manifold that I did today. Yes. So that might be for another topic, but I did, and the reason for that. So anybody, I don't even have the model saved. What I did on the YouTube today was an exhaust manifold. You can go and check out that live stream. And what happened was and I don't know enough about cars, but we had 4 tubes or channels coming in connecting to one. And what happens is that because these 4 channels came together to one from different places, it kind of started breaking up the geometry of the circle. And I should have put more thought into it, Brandon, but yes, it behaved the way that, thinking about it afterwards, I think it absolutely should behave. If you didn't watch that live stream, I will upload it also here to Facebook. Probably tomorrow or sometime. No, it's already up here. It is here on Facebook, so you should be able to check it. I think I got it up. Okay, let's go back and talk a little bit about absolute beginner here. So we're gonna end up with this type of traffic cones here, and again, I want to start out from scratch. So I'm gonna open up a new design. You can do that right up here on the little plus sign. And I always like to talk about the general settings when you're starting out. You can actually go up here to your name. You can go into preferences, and you can actually restore to default. So if you ever played around with different settings, then you can always restore to default here. I'm going to hit apply OK to that. And you will see that I get the grid on here. Now, 2 things that I normally change when I start out with Fusion from a resolve default. One is to go up to your view cube up here on the right and right click on it and make sure you change perspective with auto faces. So I click on that one. And then personally, I like to go down to the grid down here. So be aware if you have some different settings down here. And open up the grid settings, and I normally turn all these off. Layout grid, snap to grid, and actually I just did a live stream on sculpting, and there I would also turn incremental move off. So like whatever, turn all these off. That's kind of like my default changes. So if you ever watch any of my videos, you're brand new and you're like, how can it be that they are different? That's the settings. All right, I can see we got Mike here. Thank you for joining, Mike. We got Ron, Kevin. Man, you're cool, Kevin. And Thomas. Yeah, so a couple of videos in a day. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so this is the absolute beginner, and I'll try to dial it back to the beginning. So if you are fairly new to Fusion, hopefully tonight this is what makes you comfortable working with Fusion. And again, any questions you have, put them in the question area and we'll chat about them. So it's a black canvas. We just made those couple of changes. So inside of Fusion, we're inside the model environment here. There's a rule, and that is we always start out with a 2D sketch. We start out with a 2D sketch that we then extrude into 3D space. You can almost think about the 2D sketch almost being a little bit like a napkin drawing. We sit down on a piece of paper and draw a 2D view of what you want, and then we blow it into 3D space. Now, there's two places you can sketch 2D sketches on, and it's either on a face or a plane. Since we don't have anything on the screen, we don't have any faces, well, there's nothing there yet, but we actually have 3 default planes. You can turn them on up here on the light bulb up here, and you can see these 3 planes are appearing, and that's where you normally want to start your first sketch. So, see, we got Sylvester here from Brazil. Awesome, man. Thank you, Sylvester, for joining. So, to start out, after turning on the light bulb, I'm going to go up here, and this is where we are saying we're going to create a sketch. And I'm going to click on that, and now I get to select one of these planes. Now, there is no rules what planes are the right ones, but I mean, I think most people are kind of like working with, you know, the view cube up here, and then you can see this is top. If you look up here, it says front. That's the front view, right view, right view. So for this cone, I'm going to start out with the base of it. I'm going to start here on the top view. So I'm going to click on the top planes. I'm going to left click on that. And when I do that, you will see that the screen moves. So we're kind of like looking at it normal. So we're looking from the top down. You can always use the view cube up here as a reference. And you will know you're inside of a sketch, the sketch menu, for 2 reasons. You have a sketch palette. We'll talk about that one a little bit. And then you're going to see up here we can turn the sketch off and get out of it again. Now let me just place the first sketch. So I'm going to go over here to the drop down. If you're new to Fusion, I know a lot of this stuff can become, you know, it's just a little overwhelming in the beginning. You know, the great thing about watching videos, I think, online is you can always stop the video, go back, re-watch it again if you missed the step. Don't feel, you know, don't give up. It's just because a little confusing because there is a lot of menus in here. Now I'm going to go into the rectangular menu, and I'm going to select the center rectangle. Now look next to the menu. It actually comes up with a little bit of explanation of what this does. So I'm going to click on the rectangular center rectangular here, and also next to my cursor it actually says what it's looking for. So looking for place the center point. Good practice is to make sure that your first sketch is tied into this origin. You will see I have a crosshair on my mouse, and when I hover over this origin it turns into a rectangle. That's when you want to left click. So I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to move out my mouse, and then you will see the rectangle comes to life. Now you will also see that there's 2 dimension boxes on each side. So I can actually type in my dimension here. So I'm going to make this one 300 millimeters. And just like you can do in Windows, to get to the second box, you can hit Tab on your keyboard. That will take you to the second box. And we can type in 300 in that one and hit Enter. And then we've kind of like created that. Now I'm going to roll the middle mouse button on my mouse here to zoom out. So you can zoom in and out on the middle mouse button. So all we have right now is just this 2D sketch. I can actually rotate the view a little bit. So I'm going to hold down Shift and the middle mouse button. We're going to do that a couple times. So you see this is just kind of like a flat rectangle right here. All right, let's just see here. So I can see Michael All right, Michael liked the video from earlier, the one with the exhaust manifold. Absolutely love it. Thank you. Yeah, some more 3D sketching. That is not a bad idea. Thomas asked if I usually make spheres with a 2D sketch or just use the sphere menu command. I think I'm a little old school, Thomas, that I actually, I don't really use some of these different commands like ellipse and stuff like that. I normally go in and just draw them up. Okay, so I can see that Kevin is helping out, or is giving some suggestions to Thomas. That's awesome. All right, and we got Troy in here. It's awesome. So, so look at this here. So we got this rectangle. And anytime I want to go back on top, I can just click the top view over here, and you will see it's 300 in here. Oh, so let me just extrude this and I get back to David's question. So at this point, we have created a 2D sketch, this rectangle, 300 by 300. Now we're ready to extrude this into 3D space. The easiest way to do that is to extrude it. You will see the extrude command is up here. You can also hit the Q on your keyboard. That's probably what I prefer to do. So hit Q on your keyboard, and you will see that the menu changes into what is called press pull, and the view changed. It kind of like went into an isometric view. If we select inside this box, left click, you will see that it turns blue. I'm going to zoom out on the middle mouse button. And anytime you see one of these arrows, I always drag in these arrows here. So drag that out a little bit. And now we're dragging it into a 3D space. I'm going to add some thickness to this one, 25 millimeters, and hit enter. And that's our first extrusion. A little tile here. Again, you can hold down middle mouse button and shift, and you can spin it around and kind of like see our first tile. What you will also notice is that down in the bottom here, we now have two little menus, or two little, I guess, episodes or something, whatever you call it. The first one here is the 2D sketch. Now, if we right click on that down here, we can hit edit sketch, and it will take us back to that 300 by 300. To get out of this, I'm just going to hit stop sketch. The other one was actually the extrusion. So we right click on that one and hit edit feature. That will take us back into we did the 25. So as we're working in here, everything kind of like gets recorded, as you will see. All right, David asked a question about moving the Z up. So I'm assuming David is referring to the view cube over here. It's maybe hard to see, but you have a Z, X, and Y over here. So a lot of people would prefer that the Y is, or the Z is going up at the top. I think a lot of machinists have it that way. You can actually change it. If you go to your name, go to your preferences, in here you can change the default modeling orientation to C up, and that if you hit apply, that will actually switch it on your next design. I think you gotta open up a new design here, and then you will see that it's switched. The reason that I don't do it is just out of habit. So like I said earlier, there is no rules about these different views, top, front, in CAD, in any ISO. And back to like the beginning of time, CAD companies have always looked at front as the default view, versus where I think a lot of us who's coming from a machining background, we are thinking top should be. So yeah, you can switch it if you want to. Okay, James, it's okay. Yeah, fine. You guys are late, man. I really just appreciate you guys taking the time. Absolutely. We got Kurt here from Vermont. Awesome. So created our first tile in here. And now, if we're gonna start our next sketch, so you kind of think when you're building something. So for you guys who just came in, we are playing around with this traffic cone here, and we are going to model it up using a couple of different tools. We're gonna start out the absolute beginner way, and then I just wanted to jump in and show some revolve, sweep, and loft also. So when you're building something like this, you're starting out, think about it as layer upon layer. So break your model down to kind of like different features almost. So in this case here, we just created the basic tile, what's going to be this flooring down here. And now we're actually ready to kind of like doing the cone. So to do that, we're going to start a second 2D sketch. So before I said that we can either sketch on either a face or on a plane. Now, because we have the first feature in there, we actually have a face we can sketch on here. So I'm going to click on creating a new sketch. I'm going to click on that face because that's where I want to start that new sketch. It's going to go normal to, and you will see down here we now get a new sketch. And I'm going to this time create a circle. Now, you can go up to the sketch menu. You will see here you have different circles. Notice that next to some of the commands, there's actually a letter. That's the shortcut key. So you don't have to dig down in these menus. You can actually just memorize a few commands, and then you can draw things without having to dive into these. So C for circle, hit that. And I'm also going to make sure this one snaps into the origin. And I'm just going to draw a circle out here. Now I'm going to put a dimension in on this one, maybe 250. Type that and hit enter twice. And then that is logged in. You can see we kind of like have that circle there. And then now we can take that and we can extrude that into 3D space. So to do that, I'm going to go and hit Q. Remember that was the press pull menu. So I'm still inside of the sketch, and I'm going to hit Q, and then I'm going to click on the circle here. And again, every time I see a handle, I pull in it. So just pull up here, and you will see that we start getting our next extrusion. Now, I want to show you something very, very basic, but something that if you start paying attention to this, I think you will be ahead of many users who will call themselves pretty good with Fusion. Be aware of what is happening inside of these menus. You know that you always rush to try to get something in the screen, right? You know what you're going to model up. You know where you want to end up. You want to model something up, whatever it is, a cone or whatever. And we have a tendency to kind of like rush through it. And then when things goes wrong, we get confused. If you slow down a little bit, notice some of the different menus that is over here. We can actually incorporate a taper angle over here. So if I type in 15, you can see I get a taper out. If I type in minus 15, I get a taper in. So if I over here give this a distance of, let's say, 350 millimeters, I kind of getting my cone shape right here, right? If I hit OK, you will now see that we got this cone shape generated. I'm rotating by holding down Shift and middle mouse button here. So just by taking a second and just notice what happens inside of these menus, you can create shapes that, you know, I definitely think when I started out, I would think about other things than just using the menu like that. Okay, let's just quickly here, let me just jump over and see any questions I missed. I probably missed a few. I'm sorry about that. Ron is asking if the plane can be changed after a sketch has been made on the wrong plane. Yes, it can, Ron. If you go in and you right-click on a sketch, you can redefine the sketch plane. Now, just be a little bit careful when you're doing that, because if I, for example, so this sketch here is the circular sketch that just made this cone. If I decide to start another sketch up on this level that went in another direction, when I move this sketch, that thing up there is going to be attached to that face and want to go with it. So yes, you can, but just if things, just be a little bit careful with it. You know, that's just the nature of it. But yes, you can. Good question. All right. Ron is saying that be consistent with your views helps later when sub-assemblies, when linking. Yes, Ron, absolutely. Good advice. Yeah, that we should do some best practices for sure. That's good. That's good advice. And as Ron says here, yes, you can actually also copy sketches and paste them on other planes. You can actually go in and create a sketch. You can highlight it, do a Control C, Control V, and you can paste it. Yep, absolutely awesome. Lachari is here, sharing the love. Love it. All right. David is asking about changing some faces. Yeah, I'm going to show in the end how I kind of like split this up here so we got that ring. I'll do that in the end. All right. Let's see here. Kevin's son, Nathan. That's awesome. Love it. Good job. Good job, Nathan. Show your dad, man. Show him how it's done. Love it. All right. And Thomas is saying that the tapering is also the little dot. Yeah, so if I go in and edit this feature again, let me just spin it around a little bit. You will see we changed to 15. You can also pull in this one, and you can change to that too. Yep. Always so many ways to do it. Shannon from Alabama. Love Alabama. Cool. All right. Kurt is asking, what is the comments in the lower left? So that's this little section down here. That's a good question, Kurt. You can actually communicate. So I don't want to get too sidetracked, but if you have ever tried to click, it opens up another screen. If you ever click on the name up here in your dialog box, then it actually opens it up out on the web, and you can see all the different files that is in there, and you can actually invite other people to your different projects, and in those different projects you can add comments to the project so other people you're sharing it with can see it. And that function inside of Fusion down here in the area is a shortcut to that. So you could actually comment out on the design. Good question. All right. All right. Kennedy is asking, if you have a cone like this, but you know the top and the bottom diameter, but not the angle, which tool can you do that? Yes, we're going to talk about that. The first tool that probably comes to mind is the loft. We're going to get to that, Kenneth. Absolutely. I'm going to talk about that. So the idea today is I want to do this as the absolute beginner. That's what we're doing right now. And then I want to kind of like make a variation where we talk a little bit about the Revolve Command, the Sweep Command, and the Loft Command. If you're brand new, I don't expect you to grasp all this tonight. But I definitely want you to be aware of these others, so not just the Extrude command like we are using now. All right, I'm going to move on here. So we have now two sketches. One was the rectangle that we extruded into the tile. Another circle that we extruded with taper up to be the top here. Now, the Extrude command is, you've seen it just used twice. It's pretty powerful. It can actually also go in the other direction because it can cut things. So now we just discussed before that we're building things up in layers or in sections. So we did the tile, we've done the cone. Now we're going to do the cut. And I'm going to start another 2D sketch, so our third 2D sketch. So don't be afraid of using sketches. So I'm going to click on that. Now, like I said in the beginning, either face or plane. We're going to continue on a face. We're going to select right up on this face here. And I could draw a smaller circle because this is going to kind of like be the hole in the center of the cone. But there is actually also, if we go back over to the sketch, you can also offset an edge. So if I click on that and we select this edge, you will see that I can offset that circle in here. So I can type in a value, -10. Just like that, and we have now created one other sketch, that circle that is offset from this sketch. So just another way to kind of like work with this. What is interesting about this is that if we ever changed the angle of the cone, this will stay 10. Now, I'm going to hit Q again on my keyboard. And then I'm going to select that inner circle there. Now, if I drag the arrow up, you will see that it becomes a solid. And as was just mentioned, you could grab this one up here and you could make that tapered if you wanted to. Now, if we go the other way, if we drag it inward, you will see that it turns red. And when it turns red inside of Fusion, that means that now it is a cut. Okay? Now, we could do what we just did before and say, well, let's just go 15 out like this and hit OK to that. And now you will see that we got a cut that is, you know, the same thickness as the outside here to do that. So let me just turn we always turn the origin off. If you feel like the origin is in your way, just hit the little light bulb. So in this case here, we kind of like created most of this cone by a 2D rectangle, a big circle we extruded up in a taper, and then a smaller circle offset from this top edge that we cut down inside of the cone. You can actually go over here and click on Inspect, and we can select a section view. And if we select this here, we can actually kind of see, you know, we created that cone there. I was going to hit OK. So that's that there. You can always turn that section view on and off on the light bulb over here. Okay. Now, to finish this cone, before we move on to the couple of other tools I want to talk about today, we're going to just round some edges. There's a tool here. If we go under the Modify, the Fillet tool. You know, so you can hit F on your keyboard. Hit the Fillet tool, and we can start applying some fillets. Now, some people has a tendency to add as many fillets in one operation as possible. I actually like to break it down into where I think it makes sense. So I want to add a fillet to these 4 corners. Shift middle mouse button to spin it around right here. And I can actually grab on the arrow and kind of like, you know, take a look at how big I want to make them. Maybe 50. Hit enter. And then I get a fillet command there. Then I will hit fillet again. And I will select this inner edge here. And then I can start adding a fillet to that. It's going to be a lot smaller. Maybe 10. And then you could also add a fillet to the top here to finish this off. And this might be 5. Now, the reason I like to do it multiple, let's say that these 2 fillets, the 2 last fillet we put, they were the same size. You could have put them in there, but many times my experience is that the customers will come back and they will just say, hey, change the top fillet, not the bottom fillet. So that's why I would do it like this. Alex is asking, is Wednesday the only time you do evening live? Yes, I'm back to my old schedule, Alex. I'm doing one every day on YouTube at 3 p.m. and then Wednesday evening is here on Facebook. That's all I can handle right now. It might change, but right now that is the best I can do. Now, we're going to come back to this one later on because we're going to change some appearances and things like that on this one. But let's just save this one here. So we're going to over-click the save icon and save it wherever folder you want and call it whatever you want. That's always good practice, right, to save something like this. Okay, I hope this is useful. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. And don't forget, any questions, throw them in there, and we will address them. So just to kind of like summarize this as an absolute beginner, you know, you're building those 2D sketches and you extrude them up. Think about it like break it into different sections and break it up like that. So I hope this is kind of like, at least you can now model a cone for whatever you need. No, there's other live streams, absolute beginners also. that does a lot of different parts and things like that. So definitely go and check those out. Now, I want to try something different. This is the 12th one we're doing here on Facebook, I think. I wanted to do something different with this one, and that was I wanted to kind of like model up the same thing, but use some of these other tools that is in here, Revolve, Sweep, Loft, because you will find other jobs where these tools will work better than just a standard extrude. So I'm going to open up a new document. I'm going to click up here on New Design on the plus sign, and we're back into a completely empty document. You can see that we don't have any features down here in the bottom or anything like that. Now, we're going to do the Revolve in here. Now, Revolve is really good for anything that is round. So, if you ever got to do anything round, you should probably consider doing the Revolve first. Now, I'm going to start out by doing an extrude, just because repetition is key in all learning, and then we can kind of like go through the same steps as we did on our first one to create the base here. So, always sketch on either face or plane. If you don't have a face, then you got to do a plane. So, I like to turn my origin on here, go up, create a 2D sketch, click on this face here, and I went up to the sketch menu. I select the rectangle, the center rectangle. Make sure you snap to the origin with your first sketch entity, left click and drag out. And I made this one 300 millimeters. Hit tab to go to the next dimension, 300 millimeters. Hit enter, and you can roll the middle mouse button, and now you have your first rectangle, just like we did before. I'm gonna hit Q to press pull. That's also the same thing. Hit the section here, drag the handle, and type in 25. Hit enter. And we are exactly the same step now as in this cone. If I grab this little handlebar, I can actually drag us all the way back to the same place with the first one, right? So then we did the cone, we did the hole, and then we did the 3 fillets. Now, instead of using the extrude for the cone, I am going to use the Revolve command. So like I said, it's great for anything round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line that I'm going to revolve around. Okay? And revolve is normally side view. So look at your part from a side view perspective. So I'm actually not going to sketch on a face. I'm going to go back again and sketch on this plane over here. So I'm going to open up a new sketch, 2D sketch. I'm going to select on this plane over here. You'll see how it's kind of like rotating to the side view. And I'm going to draw a line to rotate around. Now again, if you're brand new, just sit back right now and just take this in. You can always rewind the video. Definitely if this is your first time using Fusion, don't get yourself confused and all worked up. So I'm going to select the line tool that's sitting up here. Again, I can snap into the origin if you still like to do that. It's not a bad idea. And I'm going to drag a line vertical up here and just place it, left click, and then I can hit that little green check mark over here to end that line. So we kind of like just drew a line vertical up here. Now, a line, you can see how if you look at my mouse cursor, that I still have the line command active. You can see how I kind of like have the same icon up here as here. If you hit escape on your keyboard once, it will take you back to your normal white cursor. Now a trick is to go up. If I go up here to the point and I hold down my left mouse button and I drag up and down, you will see that the line is vertical, but it doesn't have an endpoint to it because I didn't type it in the dialog box when I placed the line, just like I did with the 300 inside of the rectangle. At any point, hit D for dimension, and the dimension tool appears here. Now, if I select just the line and move out, you will see I get a dimension that is the whole length of the line. And this is how I can control how long I want the line to be. But you can also, I'm just going to hit escape for this for a second. Hit D again. You can, I want to make sure I don't have anything selected. Hit D again, if I select the point and this line here, I can also place a dimension there instead. And that was 350 before. So even though that I drew the line from the origin and up, you can always use these D for dimension to place the dimension from somewhere else. Is that what you want? Okay. This line here is just a reference line. It's just for construction. And if you come from other CAD systems, you know that you need to turn lines into construction lines. We have a tool for that over here, where they get dotted. But in Fusion, we actually don't have to do that to be able to work with it. We can leave it solid. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another line. And many times you will see that I just sketch somewhere out in space. And I can just draw a line, whatever I want here. Click again and hit the green check mark. So now we have a line sitting. And hit escape to get out of line command. This line is just completely not tied down. It's important that we tie them down. So going from black, from blue to black, that goes from blue to black. So it's fully defined. So this comes to some of the different tools that you will find over here in the sketch palette. Now, one way you could do this, if I grab this point and move it down a little bit, I could decide to make a horizontal constraint between this point that was defined by the 350 and this point. And you will now see that it moved down, and that is not now tied in. It means no matter what I do with that line, I can't move it up and down. It will always stay horizontal to that. Another thing you can do is you can use a coincident constraint. And you need to get a little familiar with these. Where I could say from this point to this line. And now that point will always stay coincident with that line. I can't move that up and down like that. Now with this in place, we can start adding some dimensions. So if you're going to follow what we did before, D, and if I select the angular line and our vertical line, I can actually place that 15 degrees. So I can hit enter to that. And then I could also do one from this point to this point and give it whatever we want here. So that was 20, I think, to the inside there. So now I kind of like got this line created. Now I'm going to create the thickness of this wall here. So what I can do to do that is I can go back and create another line, and I'm going to make sure it snaps in, make sure everything snaps in. So I make sure it snap into this point right here. And on purpose, I'm just going to kind of like move out in an angle. You probably want to go straight, but I'm just going to go out here a little bit. And then I'm just going to go down and make sure that that snaps into that bottom line right there. Now, when I do that, you will see that we kind of like get a different color on the inside that tells us that this one is completely closed, and that's what we're looking for. But you will see that again, we have blue. We got to turn this, we got to make this black. So we're going to go back, I'm going to X out of the line command there. We're going to go back to our constraints, and we can start adding constraints. So one is maybe going back to the horizontal. Instead of selecting two endpoints like we did before, you can select a line, and that will not happen because I actually got another constraint. When I drew that up, I didn't want. If you're ever looking, it's hard to see. There's like a T on the side. If you go over here, you can actually see that also over here. So I actually have a perpendicular constraint. I made that by mistake. If you ever want to delete these constraints, click on them, hit delete on your keyboard, and now you'll see this line goes blue. Now I can turn a horizontal relationship on this line, and you will see that that now becomes horizontal. Another constraint I could use would be a parallel constraint. So I could say parallel between this one and this line, and now these two are parallel, but you will see that it's still blue. If you ever wonder what why it's not black. The best thing is to do is hit escape to get out to your white cursor, grab a corner and start dragging your mouse, and then you will see what's going on. So we gotta add a thickness to this one. So we can go back and hit D for dimension, and we could click the 2 lines and we could make these 10. Now you will see that this turned fully black, this enclosed area here. And now we can actually go ahead and we can use the Revolve. So a lot of stuff, I hope this makes somewhat sense, but the Revolve command, we'll click on that. So what we have now is we kind of like have that little enclosed from the side there in that center. If you look at the menu, it's looking for the profile, and that's that enclosed. So we can click on that. And then it's looking for an axis to spin around, and that was that line we created there. So I'm going to select that axis, click there, and you will see that now we also, again, get a cone. So another way to create a cone. Now, again, these handles here actually gives you some flexibility. So you can see here that you can actually change how you want it. You can also just go to the drop down here and say full. But if I hit OK, you will see that we kind of got the same, almost the same thing. We didn't get the round all the way through the bottom, but the shape generated by this operation here, fewer less steps, and we got pretty close. And that's the Revolve command here in here. So I still say that the first one we went through in the beginning. So if you just joined, if you go back and watch the recording on the video, the first one here, that's the absolutely beginner. This one here is just to make sure that you know that if you're working with round things, this Revolve is really good. All right, let me just take a sip of water and see where we are with some of the questions in here, because I think I missed some. Dave, I appreciate you watching. All right. I'm going to wait with the 2D question, David. Okay. Kevin, how's the baby? The baby is doing great. Thank you. All right, I'm probably have a hard time answering all these questions. Maybe not. Let's see here. So, how would you make 2D out of it and all of them? So if you're going to make a 2D print, if that's what you're talking about, David, you have the drawing menu in here. Definitely live streams up on YouTube about that. Brandon is asking, when would you use the slice and show profile commands in the sketch menu? So up here in the sketch menu, talking about the slice. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Brandon. If you could maybe explain that a little bit. All right, fillets, inside corners, rounds, or outside. Yeah, maybe. Sometimes fillets, Alex is saying fillets gets an error until I adjust the fillet radius. What are the rules for fillets? That's a good question. Well, you might get an error. It's funny when it comes to fillets and rounds, I should say. The same thing also with chamfers on parts. I think we have a tendency, we model something up and we are like, add some fillets to it so it's not sharp corners or chamfers or whatever. It's actually the time where the software needs to work the hardest because it got to solve all this. So fillets can be a little bit tricky to add. For example, if you watched today's live stream on YouTube where I did an exhaust manifold, adding fillets between the different exhaust going out, that's going to take a lot of computer power. So you might have to play a little bit with those. I would have to see exactly what you are looking at, Alex. Send me an email, man, and I'll try to take a look as soon as I can. We got Kyle. Absolutely appreciate you watching these videos. Okay, so this was what I wanted to show with the Revolve. I just kind of like wanted to show that existed. Next, let's go in and talk a little bit about the sweep. This is maybe, I don't know if this is the best way to show this, but I thought, hey, why not? So we're gonna move along the same way as we did before, and I'm gonna move a little bit faster. So a new design. So we're gonna do exactly what we did before. Open up a new origin, create a new sketch, select the top plane here. We can go over, we can select a center rectangle. Make sure you snap it into the center. This is exactly like we have done 2 times before. Hit tab, 300, hit enter, zoom out in the middle mouse button, hit Q, and drag whenever you see an arrow. We're gonna make this 125, boom. There we are. That was easy. Okay, now I could actually just go back and delete this and kind of like reuse the sketch, but I like the idea about repeating things. So I'm actually gonna sketch up somewhat the same thing as I did before. So for the revolve, so I'm gonna go up and create a new sketch. I'm gonna select that plane right here, hit the line tool. I'm snapping to the origin, drawing it up. Now this is where you could type in the value, but you could also just hit enter. You get the dimension here, except in one of the dimension. You can just click the dimension and hit delete. That was what I just did there. D for dimension, from this to here, 350. Kind of like just going through what I've already just did before. Then we created a line, another line in that one. Right? And like I said, many times I will just draw things somewhat out in space like this, and then use these different constraints to tie them in. So again, we can use the horizontal between here. We can use the coincident. We could also use, if we drag this corner down, left mouse drag, we could also use horizontal from here to this point. That will do the same thing as the coincident that we did before. So many options. D for dimension. Let's make this here 15, just like that. And then we also needed a dimension from, if you can't remember what you need, start dragging a corner and it gives you an idea. So we need D for dimension, we need from here to here. I hope this makes sense. I hope this is useful. I'm going a little fast, but you just saw it before. Drag, make sure I snap into this one. I'm going to drag a line out. This one I'm going to make sure it goes horizontal. Drag it down, make sure it snaps into space down here. Again, it's blue, so we got to work with it. I like the parallel constraint, so make these 2 lines parallel. And again, if you're unsure what you're missing, and then D for dimension, we can dimension that one, that was 10. Now we're exactly back to where I was before when I revolved. Hopefully this was not too fast. All right, so let's see, we got David here, we got John here. Man, keep making those cones. Right? That's a good one, Troy. Ron is talking about the stream freezing. I hope that is not on my end. I hope. All right, so what I want to show next is the sweep command. So the revolve command I used before, we selected a profile. What was this one inside of here? And then we selected a line to revolve around. Now, the sweep actually needs 2 sketches. Okay? And this sketch we just created here, it needs another sketch. So this sketch here is going to be the profile, just like when we do a revolve. But the second sketch we need is a path in what direction I want to go in. So I'm actually going to hit stop sketch. It's okay to leave a sketch sitting without having it extruded into anything and start another sketch. And I'm just trying to show you some of these different commands. If I click on starting a new 2D sketch on this top surface, see that from the top here, I can draw a line out, and I'm just going to make sure it snaps into our geometry. And let me draw a line out here. Maybe let's make it 200 long, just like that. Now see how that one is blue? That's because I didn't get the constraint on it, so you use a vertical constraint to get that one vertical. Let's go into a arc tool in here and do a tangent arc. Draw a tangent out like that. Pretty cool. We can then draw another line. Let's do that, something like that there. Now, it's best practice to make everything black. So default dimension, maybe we make a angular dimension from here to here. We can make that 80. A radius, 120. And then we probably also need some kind of a length on this edge here. 260. So now that is black. So we got two sketches. Let me stop this sketch. So we got two sketches. The first sketch was this whole thing that was a copy of the Revolve. Now our second sketch is a path. So check out what happens when we go into the sweep command. I click the sweep. It's looking for a profile. It's going to be the one we created that we've used before for Revolve. Then it's looking for a path, and I'll select that path right here. And what do we get? Hold down middle mouse button. We actually kind of like get that shape following that path. So it's almost like we untied our cone here. So that's what the sweep tool does. It actually shows pretty well on the little flyout menu next to the menu here, that you can use it for like piping and things like that. Now we could use this one for the cone if we wanted to. Let me just cancel out of this, and for a second let's just delete that sketch that was our path. Now I'm gonna hit I highlighted down the bottom and hit delete. What we could do was we could draw a circle that we could use as a path. And we could actually draw the circle either down at the bottom, or we could draw it up on top. The easiest we would do it down to the bottom because we have a face down here. So I could start a second sketch on that top face. And if you remember, C for circle. If I draw a circle out to this intersection here, stop sketch, now this could be our path, this circle. So now if we go to the sweep command, again, looking for a profile, that will be the same we used for the Revolve, and now the path could be that circle, and now we have kind of created the same thing as we did with the Revolve. So I still will say that as an absolute beginner, the first cone one here with the extrudes is probably the easiest way to work through it, building it up section by section. But the Revolve command is definitely great for round things. And the sweep command, well, especially if you got to follow a path, but even for something round, you can still use it. I hope this is good. Just some different, a little bit different information. All right. Eric is asking for the specs of my computer. I have to say one quick thing, Eric. I am not a computer wizard. The best thing to do, email me, lars.christensen@autodesk.com, and I'll send you all the specs of my computer. I'm actually using two different computers. I use a Dell Precision M4800. That's a Windows machine. Probably a little bit overkill for Fusion because I also run some other programs like do some Inventor and some simulation stuff. And then I also use a MacBook Pro. Yeah, send me an email and I'll send you what my specs are. But honestly, I probably think that you'll be better off maybe go to the forum. I can definitely send you the system requirements. Those I will definitely make sure that promise you I'll get if you send them to me. Okay, let's wrap this up here. And Eric, I'm just saying that because I'm not a computer freak and I don't want to. Or computer freak, that's not a good word. Computer wizard, like so many others. So I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. The last command I want to show you is the loft command. And the loft means it's lofting between different planes or sketches. Almost think about it as like a storage building. So let's open up one more design, new design. And the loft command, you could actually, on the other ones, we started with our 300 by 300 rectangle and extruded up 25. But it's definitely the easiest, like we did in the beginning here. Using that, extrude that out 25 is definitely the easiest. But you could use loft here. So let me turn my origin on, create a sketch on the top plane here, create that rectangle again, 300 by 300. If this is new, then you just joined 300 by 300. We've done this a couple of times tonight. So now I just created that 2D sketch. Now before, I said hit Q, select the inside and pull up. That's definitely the easiest. But let me just cancel out of that. What you could do was we could actually create another plane that was 25 above here and create the sketch again. So up here, there's an offset plane. If I click on that, I can offset an existing plane. What was the first one we sketched on? So I can drag this one up 25. And now you will see that I can actually sketch on that. So that's sitting right up there. So now I could start a sketch on that. Do the same thing, center rectangle. From here, and I could draw 300 by 300. Could actually also snap into the existing. It actually sees the part sitting underneath it. That's a little bit easier. Draw that in there. So what we have now is we kind of have two 2D sketches. If you look down the tree, two identical sketches, but they are placed 25 millimeters from each other. Now, if we can go in, we can use the loft. And I mean, this is a little bit more work, but we can go in here and we can select these and create the same thing. So 1, 2, 3, 4 commands to do what we originally, as an absolute beginner, did with 2 commands. So this is definitely not, this lofting for this is definitely not the way to go. You definitely want to extrude it out. But loft could be great for the rest of the cone. So what we could do now is we could open a 2D sketch. We could select the face here. And we could select a circle on that, C for circle. Make it 250. Hit enter. So now we have that 2D circle. I'm going to end this sketch. This, by the way, the loft also needs 2 sketches. If you hadn't already figured that out. So now we have one circle sitting here. Now we could go in and use this offset plane again. And we could actually just select a face to offset from too. And we can go up the 350 we had. So now we have a plane sitting up here. We can open a new sketch on that. And do a smaller circle. So this goes to Kenneth's question before. What if I have the 2 circles? I don't know what the angle is. So in this case here, we can hit 60. And we end up with this. And now, if we exit out of that sketch, so we have 2 sketches. The round here. And now if we go into the loft, select this, then we get a cone there. And actually, because on the first one, or these ones here, we didn't really use any measurements on the cone, right? If we hit the inspection tool up here and we select this edge, yeah, we would actually see that it's not even 60, right? It was the development because it was the 15 degrees. So that's a good point, Kenneth, that if you know the 2 circumferences, then loft is the tool for that. Now the loft, just like so in the original cone, when we cut through here, we used a circle here, and we cut through it. We can do the same thing with a loft. I can cut too. So I could create another sketch up here. We used an offset of this edge. So -10. Stop that sketch. And I will start another sketch down here do the exact same thing and offset from this edge, -10. And now I kind of have those two circles sitting in there. If I go back into the Loft command, and I select those inner circles, it's hard to see, but it turns red, meaning it becomes a cut, and we now have the same as we had before with the two other options. So we're gonna go in and finish this one up with some colors just in a second. But this was what I was kind of like planning on showing tonight. And I hope if you're fairly new, I hope this is useful. I'm gonna come back into comments in a second. But the cone number 1 here, the beginning of the video, that's what I would recommend if you're brand new. Just work with the extrudes, build it layer by layer, and then your chamfers. Now be aware of that you can make good round things with the Revolve commands. I hope you saw that. You have the sweep command that uses 2 sketches, a profile and a path. You can also use that for round. And then in the end here, you got this loft command that will kind of like loft between different tools. So my hope tonight was really just to kind of like show you some of the different ways that you can somewhat work with some of these tools in here. Brand new, just stay with the extrude for now, but be aware of the other tools, what they kind of do. All right, let's see here. If I have any other questions? We got Alv here. Eric's got his question answered. Alex is asking if there's any way to project sketch from one plane to another. There absolutely is. So if I open up a sketch, this is the loft one. If I open up a sketch on the top surface, it's going to go normal too. You can actually go, it's the easiest thing is just to hit, you project, P for project. You can't find it in the menu, but it's like ticking down here. P for project, and now I can actually click on these edges, and I can now project those edges, just hit OK here, up to there, and I could use those from there on. Absolutely. Project is a good tool to be familiar with. Good question, Alex. Thank you, Kenneth. Glad that you like it. Okay, cool. So I hope this was useful. Now, before we go, I normally like to do a little bit of appearances on the model, and that's just because that's how I like to see them. We got to do 2 things to this one. We're going to change the color to some orange with some white in here. So let's start out with the color first for the whole orange. So I normally just right click and hit appearances, and that will give you the appearances. Now the appearance inside of Fusion by default is steel. Many times, maybe go down to this is more like rubberish, but maybe plastic would be good, or paint. Go into opaque plastic. You will see that there's some different ones in here. Now there is a glossy red, and if I want to change the cone, you can actually just drag it. The easiest thing is actually just drag it up on the metal one and just let go, and you will see the whole thing turns red. But I actually want orange, right? And that was not in there. You can right click up here and select edit, and that will give you some neat menus. So right here, if I just move this bar back a little bit, you will actually see that this starts changing, and I can change over here kind of like the color of this. So you can see how I can kind of like adjust the color. So this is what I did. Went to some like an orange, bring it up. Maybe that's kind of good there, and hit done. So I took a red and I kind of turned it orange. Now to create the white reflector on there, that's actually not reflector, it's just white, but I had to do that on a single face. So I actually, and this, if you're brand new, this might be a little bit, don't worry about it, just look at it. Wow, I like that orange better than I like this orange, huh? But the way I did that was I created another offset plane from this face. Just drag that plane up wherever I think the bottom of the white should be. maybe 150. And then I created another one and drag that around, maybe 80. So now I kind of have two planes cutting through this cone. Then I use the command called split face. Now split body will actually cut the part through, but the split face will just break the face here and not really damage the part. So I'm going to select the face I want to split, and then I'm going to select the splitting tool, or splitting tools, and that will be those two planes we just created. Hit OK, and if I want to hide the planes, I can do that in the light bulb. You will see that now I kind of like split that face up. Now I can right click again, go into appearance, and there was a glossy white down here. Now if I drag it over, it will actually do it on the entire model. So I'd switch this one to faces and then drag it over just on that area there, and that was how I kind of applied that color to the cone. That's it. That was an hour. I hope a good use of that splice. You know, the splice. You know what I'm thinking, Brandon? I think I actually want to investigate the slice tools over in the sketch before I dig too deep into that. I've actually not really spent too much time with them, I have to admit. So I'll get back to you on that, Brandon. Next live stream we can talk about that. So a lot of stuff is going on. Like David suggests, you can always play back on the videos, and that will definitely give you a chance to see all the stuff. All right, man. I think that we're going to call that a Wednesday evening here on Facebook. I really, really appreciate you taking time to join these live streams on Wednesday evenings. I'll be back on YouTube tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern. Gonna do some sheet metal tomorrow. Should be fun. So yeah, until next time, hope you have an awesome day. Thank you so much, everybody.